Now, for a better understanding of the plight of migrants, we are now joined in our Pretoria studios, that is, by Mr. Samuel Omollo. He is the head of the operations unit for International Organization for Migration in South Africa. Mr. Omollo, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you for having me.
Now, first, let's start off here at home in South Africa. What is your take on the current immigration situation in the country, looking at the recent xenophobic attacks?
I must say it is an unfortunate situation that it did happen as a result of measures not having been put in place to alleviate the problem that occurred. But I must at the same time categorically say it is encouraging to note that the government and all parties concerned are intervening to ensure that this doesn't happen again. We are particularly impressed by the participation of the media in highlighting the issues in order to be able to ensure that the local population realizes the benefits that migrants bring to the country.
Now, what do you think, and from your perspective, needs to be done to prevent this from happening in future, the xenophobic attacks? And does South Africa maybe need to revisit its immigration policies?
I think it is important, it's necessary, it is inevitable that the root causes of these problems are addressed. It is important to look at what fuels these problems. Areas such as economic empowerment to the local community, areas such as enhancing or raising awareness of the benefits that migrants bring to the local community. And it is important that the government is seen and all parties concerned are seen to without failure address these issues and to sort of like ensure that there is the element of the economic empowerment to the local population and promote the cohesive existence of both the foreign nationals and the locals.
Now, let's cross borders now. What can we expect from today's EU summit on the migrants' deaths in the Mediterranean Sea?
We at IOM would want to imagine decisive steps will be taken, considering the fact that what happened on the Mediterranean Sea has been described as the worst tragedy in living memory involving migrants crossing the Mediterranean. I will just quote what the International Organization for Migration Director General Ambassador Swing said, and I quote, "The world needs to react with the conviction with which it eliminated piracy off the coast of Somalia a few years ago. All of us, especially the European Union and the world's powers, can no longer sit on the sidelines watching while this tragedy unfolds in slow motion, and well over 1,500 have drowned since the beginning of January." That just highlights the seriousness of the issue. And back to your question, what we expect from this meeting is decisive steps, decisive measures being taken to avoid such tragedies in future.
Are you then suggesting that enough is not being done to assist these migrants?
There's lots being done. It's just that the implementation is a little bit wanting, and we need to reinforce, we need to enhance that. Every party is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Now, what seems to be the root problem in North Africa regarding the deaths of the immigrants who travel to Europe for a better life?
The root cause mainly would be the push factors. What pushes the migrants into wanting to take this dangerous course in order to move across the borders. Root causes would be the likes of, if you're looking at the African perspective, crop failure and insecurity. If these issues are addressed adequately, and of course the African population empowered economically, and the democratic space increased within Africa, we would sort of like try to alleviate this problem.
What do African countries, Mr. Omollo, need to do in order to address this problem of their own people leaving their own countries for other continents?
Again, just as I've mentioned, to address the root causes, look at the push factors, what pushes the populace into moving. If we address those issues, we would be better placed in terms of coexisting within the various countries in sub-Saharan Africa.
Is there perhaps a need to revisit legislation when it comes to immigration laws for other countries dealing with the influx from African migrants?
In most countries, including South Africa, the legislation is there. The legislation is right. The problem is the lack of, for lack of a better word, the proper mechanisms of implementation. If the legislation was properly and effectively implemented, I think we would also generally address the issues at hand.
From the International Organization for Migration in South Africa, how are you assisting, in fact, from a continental perspective, how are you assisting these migrants now being in Europe and being detained?
The points of intervention are to sort of like ensure that they are treated humanely, and also for the future trying to assist the different governments to in terms of capacity building in order to better manage their borders, to promote the humane movement of migrants generally. Now,
we talked about the push factors a little bit earlier, but one of them, which was not mentioned, is trafficking, or human trafficking in that area. Is that a problem in that area?
Certainly, yes, it is. It is a problem. And again, that stems from lack of bringing culprits to book, and lack of proper implementation of the legislation, and of course a slight decline in the creation of awareness in terms of ensuring that the vulnerable population doesn't succumb to the traffickers.
What now for these migrants that is now stranded in Europe, Mr. Omollo, from the International Organization for Migration's perspective?
It is a case whereby, from International Organization for Migration's perspective, a matter of intervening with the different governments involved in order to try and ascertain a lasting solution for the stranded migrants.
Mr. Omollo, thank you so much, and good luck with your initiatives helping these immigrants leaving from Africa to Europe.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you for having me.
That was Mr. Samuel Omollo, who is the head of the operations for International Organization for Migration here in South Africa. You heard his thoughts on the matter.